2 weeks in a row of disaster. I wouldn't say here on the Calcio Guys podcast, but at least for the teams we follow, Adriano, Gianni, I'm Nicholas. Joined this week from Olivier Cast, Anthony Scanga, or Tony. I asked you before. I tried to ask you before, Tony, but my mic wasn't working. You prefer Anthony or Tony?
Either one. Tony's good.
Either one. I like Tony. My dad's Tony, so I think I'll go with Tony. And shorter
that intro music.
Shout out to Zio Tony.
Yeah.
Tony time, baby.
We've been using StreamYard how long, and they always had the same intro music, and this is the first week that it changed. So I don't know, someone from StreamYard decided to change it up, but
might explain why your headphones aren't working. It's all StreamYard's fault.
Yeah, exactly. But Calcio Guys, you could follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube at the Calcio Guys. Listen to us on your favorite podcasting platforms. One change that was made this past year was Juve coaching. That we're going to talk a lot of it today on the podcast. What happened? What happened?
Coaching so much.
Sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Heard that before.
Last week we talked Milan. They lost in the Champions League. Yes, Juve lost the Champions League last week as well. We didn't go in full detail, but Coppa Italia lost. Huge upset today against Empoli, 1-1. Lost 5-3 on penalty. I mean, Anthony, Tony, let's get right into it. Shocked at all by this result or what?
That's a good question. Am I upset about it? No. Am I shocked? Well, you have to be when you're playing when essentially Juventus's opponent was us four in matching jerseys, right? You got to win. You got to beat that team when they're basically playing. When where's Empoli in the standings? Bottom
fighting
four?
Relegation.
I think 17th.
And they're playing their B side. There's really not a lot of excuses you can make when you essentially have your A team out there. So, shocked would be surprised. Yeah, we'll say I'm surprised. Am I upset? No. Surprised? Yes.
What happened with the Tendi situation? Because I was out and about, like doing errands and stuff and doing schoolwork. But Mattia Perin had to go in nets. What happened?
He normally starts the Coppa Italia matches, so okay. I didn't hear anything about Di Gregorio.
Oh, okay, no, I heard something. Because I was on, I was trying to follow along on Twitter and stuff, and I heard something about Perin, and I'm like, okay, well, did something happen? Like, Di Gregorio,
he's pretty standard for the Coppa Italia matches.
I'm asking because I don't know, and I was just curious myself, and maybe that was a factor of things.
He was not a factor today. Well, he kept it from being probably a little bit worse, right, Nick?
Yeah. I was gonna say it's not goaltending. That was the issue. I mean,
right.
If you see the goal, he kind of got his hands on it. Would Di Gregorio have made a save there? Probably not. Let's be honest. There was that one penalty he kind of stopped, but not really, and went in. But no, it's not on goaltending. For me, I'd love to hear Tony's thoughts, but for me, it's obviously a team effort, but it comes down to the final third. Just not clinical enough, and it seems like that's been the issue all season, right?
Well, there's been how do you boil down? There's a lot of macro issues you can say. Is it Giuntoli, the players he brought in? Is it Motta, his system? Is it the players? Is it the chemistry? Is it the injuries? Is it J Medical? I think you're kind of getting a little bit of everything. You have one person who's upset about this, one person upset about that. And we were talking about it in our group chat at the AJC after, and it's like on a micro, if you're looking just at this game, you really got to put it on the players. It's on Motta, he's got to get his team ready. I understand that. But at some point in some games, I'm not saying as a whole in the season, because again, it's a team, right? It's the whole group has to wins and loses together.
Yeah.
But as a team, like you're a stronger team. You just have to figure out how to beat a weaker side. And that falls on the players. Motta has to put the right guys out there. I get that. Some people are saying, well, Yildiz should have started this and that. It shouldn't come down to one or two players. Top to bottom, keeper to striker, you are a better team today. And you just have to figure it out. Sometimes the players just have to figure it out. If you want to get into the whole season, that's a longer conversation, which I'm happy to have. But for today, I think just to boil it down, players have to figure it out. Padin did what he could. I didn't think we played that bad at the back, but just no ideas up front. And that to your point, Nick, that's sort of been our crutch all season. Just not a lot of ideas up front.
What do you guys make of Motta's comments after the fact about like there's being deserved versus expecting results and stuff? Like, do you feel like as if that's Motta kind of throwing a bit of the throwing the shit back towards the players, and it's like, look, you can argue me, but there's like something's got to give too, or you think it's Motta trying to save face? Like, what do you guys make of that?
Did you want to start that one, Nick? I know.
Motta does a lot of talking for a coach that doesn't get the results. Let's just put it that way. I know at the end of the day, after every game, there's going to be a press conference, this and that. And Allegri was the same too, right? Like sometimes the biggest highlight of the match was the post-match press conference. I didn't really I saw the quote you're talking about, Johnny. It's hard to decipher, right? Like, is he blaming certain parts of what he's saying is like, yeah, it's on him. Other parts, it seems like he's blaming the players. I wonder if also some things are just lost in translation too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like depending on what which social media account you saw. Like some accounts I see, they post pretty much every single quote from the press conference, so it looks as if he's saying it all at once, but in reality, it's different questions, different quotes. So, I'm not personally, I wouldn't look into that too much. I personally, I would like for him to just come out and say, look, it's my fault. The guys weren't prepared. We're going to be prepared next game. Simple as that. But it's not an ideal world. I don't know. What do you think, Tony?
He did say that. He did take responsibility today. I do see how people would say, well, it looks like he's kind of throwing shit at the players as well. Can he? Can't coaches throw shit? I don't know if you guys follow college basketball, and anybody watching this, you guys, take a look at what the UCLA basketball coach said about his players on Wednesday or last week. He said, "I'm the only one in the building who works around here." So sometimes coaches do just say, "Well, they just throw their hands up." I don't think Motta was throwing his hands up today, but he has to take responsibility first and foremost. Got it. His responsibility. But sometimes I don't have an issue with the coach saying that the players just didn't perform either.
Yeah.
Because they didn't.
Yeah. And listen, if he's what he said or what he didn't say, at the end of the day, there's some truth in that. And whatever was said, there's some truth in it. Because at the end of the day, I don't know, whoever was able to watch the game today, that first half was terrible. It was terrible. I'm sorry, just looking from the outside in, and I'm not trying to be a hater, but because we can hate on Juve all day, me and Johnny, but it was terrible. And I know I saw, and me and Tony were talking about it a bit, off air before you guys settled in there, but it could have been more than what the scoreline was. It could have been 2-3-1, potentially 2-3-0, like if that second half goal doesn't happen, right? So I was seeing people saying, "Oh, I shouldn't even went to the penalty shootout." I mean, not for nothing, but Juve is even lucky that it did go the distance, because they would have, they actually had a chance to pull it out. But at the end of the day, like, you can blame whoever you want. It's tough when you lose. There's so much blame to go around, and not many people want to take accountability. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case today, but it's tough because, maybe the manager, in this case Motta, didn't prepare his team the best. But I don't know. I don't think Juve goes out and say, okay, yeah, today let's not lose. Like we're gonna go there. Well, yeah, let's lose today. Let's stir the newspapers. Like I don't think they do that, right? So a bit of it is on the players, in my opinion, and a bit of it is on him. It's fair to say, because at the end of the day,
did the players just not, were they not ready mentally because we're playing a weaker side where they started soft?
Maybe because I know Milan kind of plays down to their opponents. I don't know if Juve do. I don't watch Juve week in and week out, so I can't say. But it's possible. And at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe their focus is more on the league, which, okay, you have every right to focus more on one competition. That's fine. but some accountability has to take place. And if it's going to be the players, or if it's going to be these core players of this team, these leaders of Juventus and Motta, that it has to happen, because at the end of the day, Motta can't put the ball in the net. Motta can't save a penalty. He can't go out and score a penalty instead of sky it ala Zaza. It's an accumulation of these things where you're going to point the finger. And I think there's multiple fingers you can point, sure, but I think just moving on and just moving past this is the case. But because really now their only focus really now is what, guys? It's trying to get into top four in the league, right? In Serie A, because they're out of Champions League, they're out of Coppa Italia, Super Coppa didn't go their way. It's only top four that's their main priority. Probably, obviously, the biggest goal for them, regardless, or one of the bigger goals. But now it's really do or die for that top four.
But I mean, like, it's sorry for interrupting, Tony. It's like, I feel like as if for Juventini in general, it's frustrations because it's been a whole season of just like subpar performance after subpar performance after subpar performance.
Yeah.
And it's like players that, you've felt like have grown or had potential to, finally fit into a role. And it's been maybe for some players like Vlahovic, it's been like almost 3 years and it still doesn't seem, it's like, okay, buddy, it's like, how many chances are you going to get, and it's like, don't forget, new sporting director with Giuntoli, new manager in Motta, like players coming in and out, sometimes deals falling through. It's like, I feel like it's understandable. And like to defend Juventus a bit, I almost threw up in my mouth there for a second. I'm just kidding around.
I was about to hold the bucket for you, Johnny, because I didn't expect the words.
To defend Juventus for a second, like it's I feel like this is kind of understandable because you're in an in-between zone of like moving on from like an older project towards a newer project from an outsider's perspective. Now, please guys, correct me if I'm wrong. It just feels like it's a transition period for Juve. Now, yes, it's going pretty crappy because it's like, like it's Juventus, right? It's a team that is always expected to be in the elite company of Serie A, but after experiencing what I saw with Napoli last year, I'm never going to be surprised that sometimes the best teams can have a really shitty season, for lack of a better term, from out of nowhere. Am I correct with making that kind of guess or assessment, Tony? What do you think?
Well, so I was on that mindset for a long time. It's a rebuild. For me, you got to give the sporting director, I say, at least 3 summer mercatos to figure out like his team, right? Giuntoli did a lot of work last summer. On paper, me and Adriana were talking about it before in the green room. On paper, he did fantastic work for this season. Now, sort of basically halfway through the season, a lot of talk, like watching all the Juventus games and a lot of the Motta out kind of. I'm not a Motta out guy, but if a manager comes in, he has to implement his system. So a lot of the issues right now that Juventini have is, what is his system? What no players are improving. The team isn't improving. We have good halves. Like we seem to have like a good first half, shitty second half. And then the next game, it's like, okay, bad second half or whatever, bad first half, good second. It's like, we can't really seem to be consistent. So just, even if we were just consistent, I think a lot of people would give Motta a little bit more leash, but it's the inconsistency that's really starting to drive people nuts. And again, we were talking about this in the green room, how much leash do you give? Because a lot of people are just saying at the end of the year, if all you get is top 4, like, at this point, the way we got out of Coppa Italia, the way we left Champions League, they're at a leash. Or do you give a manager 2 years? But it's hard to argue against someone who says, well, we're not improving. Like, well, what argument do I have to somebody to say, well, Motta's at least improving the team? Is he? I haven't really seen it. Is it going to get better in year 2? I hope so. But we just haven't really seen it. But again, you kind of fall back to, it's still technically sort of a rebuild. There's a fine line, and it's so gray because Juventus is trying to do so many changes at once. that everything's like there's a hyper focus on everything. Well, we spent this much on Luis, we spent this much on Cope Miners. Again, we didn't really spend 160 million last summer. It's not like 160 million left our books. Like, anyways, that's a whole different conversation. But where do you put that, Nick? Right? Like, where do you like? A lot of people seem to be in their lanes to say, forget the rebuild. This is Juventus. You have to win. Some people are like, well, we have to give it a couple. Old guys like me are like, oh, we've been through this before. We'll be fine. But it's hard to argue against people that say, no, we should be winning now based on the team we have on the field. Can't argue it. It's hard to argue.
I like what you said about, system. And it's kind of what I've been thinking too this whole time. It's like, what's Juve's identity? And listen, I don't mind if the plan is, take on this new management, take on this new coach, go through a rebuild, but make that your identity. Don't go out and spend 170 million. Okay, I know it's not a real 170 million, like you said, but if you're going through a rebuild, why are you splashing that much cash? If you're going to go through rebuild, that's when you're playing your younger players, you're keeping your Mirettis, you're keeping your Fagioli's. But on the other hand, if you want to win now, it seems like, for me, the moves they made this summer, it seems like they wanted to at least win now. No way I thought they'd win the Scudetto this year, but I've thought maybe, a comfortable top four, at least fight for the Scudetto type of finish. Obviously, I didn't think they'd be this bad. And another thing I'm thinking is they're playing the Club World Cup in June. What's going to happen? Are they going to go out and embarrass themselves? They have a fairly easy group, 2 unknown clubs that I forget who they are. I think it's an Asian club and possibly an African club plus Man City. So, get out of that group, please. After that, we'll see how much, how intense this Club World Cup even is, right? Because is it like a is it going to be like a postseason tournament? We'll see. But, one thing I said on the podcast last week, Tony, is at this point, it feels like a waste to get rid of Mata because this is their guy now. You almost have to stick with him, at least for one more season. I don't know if you agree with that.
I do. I see that point. I also see, there's been no real you sort of want to see improvements throughout the season. We haven't really seen that. Some people say, well, look at brought in 16 new players. You have all these injuries. You're the youngest team in Serie A, or second youngest team. I think Bottoma's the youngest team. So there's like this struggle of like, do you keep him? Do you not? I think Giuntoli's going to stick with him. He's Giuntoli's guy. He's going to stick with him for next year. We'll see how it goes. The Club World Cup, send the next gen team. Don't even send your top players. Send next gen, because originally it was supposed to be like $50 or $60 million per club. Now it's like 19. Send your next gen and don't even bother sending the medical staff. Don't even worry about it. Right? Give your A team the summer off, and I wouldn't even send Mutt over there for it. Send whoever the next gen coach is. Send them over there. Right? It would be a shame for the fans, but what are we doing here? There was a promise of X number of dollars. Now it's like half of that or less than half of that. I wouldn't even worry about it. The fans would hate it. Obviously, I have a ticket to one of the games, but it's again, getting back to Motta. It's really a tough one. I was all like Motta in. This is our guy, but he's really not showing me a lot.
Yeah, but even looking again for me and Johnny, kind of looking inside out from the outside in. Sorry. For me personally, I would, and I told Tony before, again, like we were saying in the green room before, but I think you have to go with him for another year. I know there's reports saying, I saw on Twitter just before, Twitter points saying, oh yeah, the contract for 2027 until 2027 doesn't look as strong to keep him around, get him out, blah blah blah. Guys, I don't know, it cannot be that these top clubs, and not only Juventus, but the Milans of the world, Napoli even, going from winning a Scudetto to changing coaches like they're changing their underwear. It cannot be that, these top clubs are constantly changing coach and constantly changing, you want to say systems and stuff of that nature, to just start again and again and again. Is it one rebuild or is it 10? What are we doing? Like it's there's no clarity, I think. So it doesn't help, the fan bases, which I get, totally.
Doesn't help the
But
league.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't help the league. Yeah, I guess, right. But at the same time, it's tough. You have to, in my personal opinion, you have to stick with him another year. And I know that's probably not, the best sounding thing for a lot of Juventus fans because, not only Juve fans, but just fans in general are very, very reactionary. They want to win now. Everything has to happen now. But, you have to build to a certain end goal. And if you're not going to allow that building to take place, how do you want to get to where you want to go? It's not, you're never going to get there. So for me personally, I would stick with, Motta another year. How many years did they go with Allegri? And like half the fan base, we're going to go, burn down J Medical there. Like they were going to burn everything because they had Allegri on another season. So stick with Motta another year, kind of get a grasp of things. And again, like I was telling Tony off air there, for me, it starts from the top. So if it be Giuntoli and company, from the president down, I mean, it starts up there that, these are the guys that put Motta in place. He was obviously the hot coach. We've spoken about it many times on the show. He was the hot coach of the summer to bring in. A lot of Italian teams were looking at him to bring in. But again, guys, like to his defense, like what's his sample size? Bringing Bologna into Champions League and having a great season, aesthetically, but pleasing to the eye. Okay, that's great, but his sample size wasn't very big. You're going from Bologna to a piazza like Juventus. It's a heavy shirt to wear. It's a heavy, it's a heavy club to represent. Not everybody can do it. So I think you got to give him some slack, but at the same time, if you want to continue changing coaches, like how many coaches have they changed?
Well, you do the Pirlo, Sarri, right?
Allegri in 2019, Sadi 2020, Pirlo 2021, Allegri 2022.
And now
changes.
They're on their fifth coach in 6 years?
In 6 years.
6 years, 5 coaches. That's for a club of Juventus' stature and everybody, Juventus, that's unheard of. Like that shouldn't be, right? So you have to, in my opinion, you have to stick to something. Currently it's Motta, so I think personally you have to stick with that, but
I got a question for Nick then.
Go for it.
For Juventus, let's just say Motta, they decide to move away from Motta this summer. Do you bring in a young coach? Like
there you go.
Aladino from whatever, from Fiorentina, where, I'm not, don't get me naming coaches, I don't know any. Or do you bring in like an experienced coach, or you bring back a Conte, or do you bring back, an older coach, right? That's just going to give you whatever 2-3 years, or can we bring in a younger coach?
Pioli.
Not with this
Pioli.
Not with this fan base, I don't think.
He's in Saudi Arabia now, no?
It's coaching Ronaldo. What is it? Al Nasser?
Bring him back to Italy. Clearly, he did a good job with Milan to the point where he leaves, and we're having these same conversations with Milan. Oh, should we not have fired him? This and that. And listen, a guy like Pioli, he's not. I know he won the Scudetto with Milan, but he's not a guy you bring in to expect to win this Scudetto. Seems like a guy to stabilize the ship a bit. Kind of that veteran presence. Because Tony, I think when you bring in a young coach, you're kind of seeing with Motta, it's a lot of pressure, and especially when you, like I said before, when you don't have that identity, it's like, okay, are they rebuilding or do they want to win? And so I think, the only young coach that kind of had some success was Pirlo, and he was fired after one season. And his success was Coppa Italia top 4 finish, which, By Juve standards today would be good, right? Look, that's what happened to Allegri last season, and that was good. But we need to get back to Scudetto. After that, who knows? Like you said, I don't know how many coaches out there that could come into this Juve team with this roster and absolutely change the game. Maybe Conte. Maybe Conte. Other than that, I have no clue.
One name that gets thrown around, well, there's a couple names. One is Zidane. I would just be like, no. The only bus he ever drove was full of Hall of Famers, so no. The other one, Deschamps was thrown out there. I was like, maybe. But I think he wants. Does he not? Is he not? Where's he now? Doesn't he coach France, or he wants the France job or something?
He's almost out of it, no?
He's still there now.
Right. So, geez. Again, it's another tough question. Yeah. Juventus should not be a training ground for managers. Can't be.
5 coaches in 6 years, Tony. That's unheard of.
Yeah. So whoever the next one is, or whenever that is, there's going to be a lot of conversation, I think, as to who. Do you bring in a veteran coach? We can't go through another rebuild. I think we've added enough pieces this summer, last summer, to have this team on its way. This summer, you got to get a fullback, maybe a backup striker, and then a center back, right? You have like 4 pieces you got to fill. I think Juve did great work last summer. On paper, you look at it like done. This team easily is in top 4, which goes over to the people who want Motta out, because it's like, look at the team he has, should be doing more. But we were talking about this in the green room. You take 13 of those draws, you cut those in half to 6. That's 12 points. Right now, that means you're 4 points ahead of Inter for the Scudetto. So, are we that bad? Are we? Some people make it sound like we're in a relegation battle. We're not playing well, but we're still in 4th, 8 points off the lead. So I don't think there's one right answer. I think there's no wrong answer. I just think it's just not clicking right now. And who does that fall on? And a lot of people, to your point, Adrian, are pointing to where's the management? People above Giuntoli, why aren't they coming to the microphones after these games saying, this isn't good enough? We'd like to hear more from those people, but Calvo and those guys up there, they're all sort of temps. We like to, at the AJC, we like to call them the temps, because they came in during all that financial crisis, and we're surprised that they're even still there.
Sure.
But for me, I think Giuntoli is doing a good job. It's now on the manager and the players to figure it out.
I agree. Right. I mean, listen, Nick, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but there's definitely more to say.
I was going to ask something else. Jenny, you look like you had a question.
Well, no, I was just gonna make a little silly joke. It's about to like when Tony was mentioning about the Club World Cup, they should just send their B team, and it's just send. I know that there's no relation, but just send Juve Stabia. So when they go, they'll be like, "Wait, we wanted Juventus." Yeah, you got Juventus.
You got
Juventus Stabia.
I would have no problem with that.
They made an error on the invitation list. They wrote Juventus Stabia instead of Juventus autofill. They're like, "Yeah, you got a City B team. Have fun."
But yeah, no, speaking about that Club World Cup, yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting. It almost feels like what was the tournament, the preseason tournament? They used to have a tournament, International Champions Cup or whatever they called it.
Summer there, it would play in the States and stuff. Yeah,
it just feels like it might turn into that, but we'll see. I wanted to ask you, Tony, about some of these transfers, especially the ones that came in this past winter. It was an interesting winter market. One guy like Alberto Costa comes in and he doesn't play until today. So, I'm asking, I forget if they outright bought him or it's a loan. But what's the point of going out and getting a player if you're just not going to play him? It's such weird optics.
I thought he was dead, to be honest. I didn't know where he was. I thought we lost him. I thought maybe he got hit on the autostrada somewhere. I thought he was dead. And some people thought it was actually Alberto from the All Juve cast. We actually signed Alberto, but no, it wasn't him either. So there's two ways to look at that. You know, Bremer goes down, Cabaldo goes down. You lose two of your defensemen. A lot of people are saying, well, why wouldn't you go into free agency in like November? That's not really what teams do, and Juventus has never really done that either. I thought they did great work in January. Right? Normally teams don't do any work in January.
Yeah.
But you know, Vega comes in, Nick, he's really shored that up at the center back. Unfortunately, he got hurt. Now he's under J Medical, which is another absolute nightmare that I don't even want to deal with. Kalulu goes down. Kalulu's not even a center back, but he's playing well as a center back. So for the pieces that Alberto Costa is a bit of a special case because he is young. I thought he was supposed to be going to next gen, but they did with who ended up getting hurt. Whoever, I guess it was when Kalulu got hurt. Oh no, sorry, when they ended up getting rid of Danilo. So he ended up staying up with the first team. And on our pregame show this morning, we were all thinking that he was going to start because, like, what, you know, you're playing Empoli's B team. Why wouldn't you start him today? So that going down 1-0 sealed the fate of him not getting a lot of minutes today. You know, Kelly's come in. You know, we like to call him Lloyd Braun. Not terrible, right? So far, like he hasn't been. A lot of people are coming in saying this guy's going to be, you know, a dumpster fire again. Not playing bad. From when Bremer went down, we had a lot of holes at the back. I think, you know, what Jutli's done with the guys coming in, the defenses seem to just figure it out, right? These guys have figured it out. Maybe that's, you know, because you have Gatti there every game, you know, sort of like a stable source. Again, teams don't do work in January. You tend to overpay. Really, the only one that we might then Kolomuani coming in January. Like, what beautiful piece of business was that? So again, that's going to be a high redemption. I don't think that might not happen with PSG unless there's a swap with Vlahovic or whatever all the rumors are saying there. So Costa really is the only one that hasn't played, and there's a lot of head scratching going on too as to why he's not seeing more minutes. But again, he's a right back. But now you have Timothy Weah the past 3-4 games who's been lights out. Timothy Weah has probably been our best player. You can argue that he's been our best player the last 3-4 games. At least the most consistent. So what you're gonna put Costa in there when Timothy Weah is absolutely balling out at right back? No. So, you know, these are the things that, again, Motta is like, well, how do you balance these out?